Hi, guys. I'm so excited for this new season for our Quiet Voice Big Impact podcast. I'm so thrilled and honored to have this special guest today. I'll share more about how we met in a second, but I'm really excited to introduce all of you to her. Her name is Liana Naima. Such a poetic name together. And she is a spiritual wellness practitioner and speaker. And I like on her Instagram, she says she's also the creator of life altering and soul nourishing experiences. I get goosebumps reading that statement. So I'm so excited to have her here because it's interesting how life finds a way to sync up your divine connections. Because at the beginning of the year, I was looking to expand into my next level. And I could feel that I was being guided to work with someone in an energetic capacity. And I don't know how I found you, but somehow Instagram put you in my timeline and I hopped on your page and I was really struck by all the content about love. But it wasn't love on a very surface level. It was very in such a profound, deep way. And that's what I really wanted us to dive into today is just seeing love as this foundational guiding life force, not just love in a romantic way or in a surface way. But I just feel like your content really spoke to me. And it was just a few posts and I was in and I just, signed up for a quick discovery call with you. And we set up an actual healing session and it was so um, really transformative for me. It was my intention that it would be very gentle, but it really allowed me to expand in a way that felt safe. And it's still an ongoing process, but I just wanted to acknowledge that I appreciate you and your work and how you present yourself in such a natural and genuine and profound way. And I could feel that in your content. So welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here with you. Love as the guiding force of my life was really sort of just intuitively early on in my childhood, something that I knew was my biggest motivating factor for everything in regards to like wanting to first and foremost love my life, love the people in my life on a deep level, and to just see where it could take me. I only do things if I feel like I can fully be present in love and as love, and making those decisions and making those actions. So yeah, in undergrad, I studied philosophy, in Africana studies, and I remember one of the classes that I took was philosophy of love.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I took a class just on love at one point, and it really just opened my eyes to the power of meaning and how this invisible force and this boundless nature of love itself is really beyond language. So what pushes me is that I trust that the invisible nature of love, because love cannot be reduced to just the word we have of it, is why I'm here and why I exist. So yeah, I've been really fascinated. I've always really been fascinated by words and like the limitations of language itself. And the limitations of love is that we have all of these different sort of societal images of it. We think of like our Disney fairy tale versions of love that we're really indoctrinated into in our childhood. We see maybe healthy or unhealthy expressions of love from our guardians or our parental figures. And deciding in adulthood that it is more than just a force in regards to romantic relationships, or friendships, I really kind of view it as the material of life that I'm choosing to hold my existence together. Yeah, I feel like we have these two forces every day in our life, whether it's like a fear-based life or a love-based life. And a love-based life really allows me to feel that the fabric of my existence is supported. Yeah, I always think of, like, I think it's a book title by, I think her name is Gabby Bernstein, and I've literally never read this book, but I remember the title of the book is like The Universe Has Your Back. And my relationship with the universe, my relationship with creation is a love-based world. And that I'm not going to choose fear and how I move about. And fear is moving about the world from like a scarcity mindset. It's moving about the world with like anger and frustration. I have it in everything that I do. I can't even, it's like my perceptual reality of life itself is that I live in a love-based world. And in that reality, everything is for my expansion into more love, into deeper acceptance of, you know, life itself. So I don't know if that sounds like too esoteric.
No, I just think it's honestly, I think it's so brave and profound that you claim that for yourself. Because a lot of people go their whole life trying to understand what love is, because, like you were saying, it's through the lens of their caregivers growing up that they understand love. And sometimes love feels like distorted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for you to proclaim that you are going to live your life in the fullness of love and for your own soul's expansion, I just feel like there's not a lot of people that are that self-aware and have the courage to honor themselves to live that way on a day-to-day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you always come to that realization, or did you gradually get to that place of this sense of like wholeness and fullness in regard to love?
Yeah, I think I kind of came to this awareness probably when I was around 25, in regards to just how I want to live my life. I had a really traumatic back injury in my mid-20s when I was 25, and that was a completely like psychosomatic injury. It was due to stress, and I had compressed nerves in both of my legs. I was unable to walk comfortably for 6 months of my life. Standing was excruciating, walking was excruciating. Um, and I was literally planted on the ground and taking 12 to 14 pills a day, Percocet, Valium, Tramadol, to be able to barely stand up. So this hit because I felt like I wasn't living my life in accordance with self-love and self-care. Um, really was the big wake-up call that something was off. And in that moment, I decided that I needed a massive shift in my relationship with my own inner self-critic, with my own value system. I needed a real overhaul of how I was living on this planet, because I was living a life of, you know, just hyper materialism, like vanity, which I feel like a lot of us go through in our 20s. And it just made me physically sick. And after eventually getting back surgery and the pain coming back, I started turning towards more spiritual support, more holistic health that looked like working with plant medicine, that looked like meditating, that looked like turning towards energy healing work. And in that turning towards my more inward journey, um, I had all of this spaciousness. And in this abyss of, you know, sort of dark matter, dark material, I decided that I wasn't going to turn inward from fear. I was going to turn inward with compassion and grace for myself. And I was going to view this unknown, invisible material as love, and it asking me to slow down, it asking me to care more deeply for myself, people, my life. So I had this breakthrough / breakdown moment of needing to deeper. And then I've had that moment again. You know, that cycle came back again in 2019 when I was 29. I got caught up in egoic material realm again. And really lost my way. So I've had probably these two major moments that really caused me to reevaluate my own value system and how I care for myself, to turn more towards love. So it was not an easy road. It was a very rough road that led me into hospitalizations. I was physically hospitalized because of my back injury, and then I was hospitalized in 2019 due to a mental health scare. So in 2019, I spent 20 days of my life in a mental hospital. And that was literally losing my sanity because I wasn't taking care of myself. So spirit really kind of kicks my ass when I'm off track. And I know it's the road that I've chosen in this lifetime, to stay on track, and it being very rough when I'm off. So, yeah.
I can totally relate because it was in my late 20s when I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And I was also, like you, very focused on outsourcing my sense of self, right? Because what I was modeled growing up is that you always have to do and achieve and progress and succeed. And it's all based on, like, to be successful, to be wealthy. And I achieved a certain level of success, but deep down, I felt this sense of emptiness. So on the surface, I was like this beautiful shell,
Mm.
but deep down, was terrified of people knowing the fact that I was very empty, right?
Mm.
Because I needed that external illusion. And it was only until I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. It's like your body will tell you, will signal like, hello. And so I had trouble walking. I was depressed. It was just really bad. And it was only until like you, um, God said it's time to go inward. And that's where I was so afraid. And that's why I was very controlling too, because I needed the external thing to control the people, the situation, but to go inside meant I had to face myself. And I feel like the most profound thing I've learned around love is that um, all the parts of me deserve love.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that. It was like I thought that only the parts of me that would produce certain results deserve love.
Mm-hmm.
Only the stuff that was acceptable deserved love. But the parts of me that I felt ashamed of, um, that when I felt insecure or depressed, the things that didn't yield me a result, whether that be validation or a circumstance, that's the stuff that I was afraid to even look at. And so that wholeness, like you, it's like when you come back to yourself and recognize all of it is worth love, loving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a deep level of courage and grace, really, because I didn't even think I was worthy of that level of love.
Absolutely.
It really took me believing in a force greater than myself because I was suffering so much that I had to learn to let go
Mm-hmm.
and trust, like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. Because I knew that if I continued on this path, it would be even worse. So I
Mm-hmm.
just like let go and just trusted one step at a time. And it's funny you said there was two instances in your life that put you back on track. And I feel like that was my first one. And the second one is being my mom's caregiver, which I've discussed with you. It's like that to me has been such a deep awakening on what it really means to honor your own self-preservation.
Absolutely.
How do you care for another without losing your own care for yourself? And this process is still ongoing. It showed me that it's safe to connect with myself in relation to others.
Mm.
Because before I would care for myself, but I would keep people at a distance because it was like I didn't know how to manage my own boundaries because everything was all mixed up because I didn't know how to honor myself. But in
Mm-hmm.
caring for my mom, I recognized, like, okay, your love for your mom is going to activate the love you have for yourself. And
Absolutely.
you're gonna find that boundary. And in working with you, actually, that it helped me to expand more what that really not just means in my mind, but felt in my body.
Mm.
And I feel like that, like really going from your mind and connecting it to your heart, that sense of wholeness, I feel like it's like that's how you come home to
Mm.
yourself. You know,
Yeah.
that's what I love about your work is that you use energy work and well, your whole spirit is very gentle and you create a sense of safety, but it's like you create a safe and sacred space for someone to feel that it's safe to go inward and come back home.
Mm-hmm.
That's why
Mm-hmm.
we're all here to help each other. That's a phrase that I've heard before. Like we're all here to walk each other back home.
Mm.
And I feel like with you, there's no coincidence that I was just randomly on Instagram and I find you. And my spirit said, yeah, book a session. I'm like, I don't even know this lady. What? My mind was literally like, who is this person? But my spirit was like, yes. And then when we talked, it was like a yes again. So I was like, okay. And that's how I've learned to co-create with life now instead of trying to micromanage God or micromanage life. You know, it's more I'm a part of life and I belong, and we're here to co-create and navigate together, and that relationship is meant to feel safe. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, thank you for everything you shared. It was medicine for my soul, and I really appreciated what you shared about your mom because I feel like, especially in regards to family, we have these sort of soul lessons in regards to self-sacrifice and
yes,
in regards to learning unconditional love at the same time. And like, what does that mean to be on this sort of like tightrope of not self-sacrificing while also loving this person conditionally? I have that relationship with my brother, and he he's not an easy person. He spent half his life in prison. He can definitely be verbally abusive, to the people that he loves. And I have at moments self-sacrificed to try to support him in ways that were very unhealthy, in ways of just putting myself on the chopping block and then, being hospitalized for it, literally. So I think in regards to family, we're really learning like what is, the ceiling, what are the walls, what is the floor, where are my bounds in regards to this unconditional love for another human being, that will not cause me to lose myself, because the love is so deep and boundless and endless. Love is the only emotion that is boundless and endless and constantly teaching you. And that is why I'm so, in a lot of ways addicted to learning about it and committed to it every single day, because I'm constantly peeling back the onion of my own conditioning and my own indoctrination just by choosing love as the way. And it's pure ecstasy, and it's also pure transformation. It's the only thing, it's the only medicine we need, it's the only plant medicine we need, is with every breath choosing love and seeing where that's going to take us. And also when you were talking, I was thinking about there was this like really weird sort of moment in the spiritual community, I think around like 2017, in which everybody was talking about 5D. They were like, five dimension, we're all transcending to the fifth dimension. And I was like, what about the fourth dimension? Like, what about the heart chakra?
too. I was like, did I skip something?
How did we skip love? Like, how did we skip love itself to go into the throat chakra, which is essentially past lifetime wisdom, and being able to tap into those gifts? I'm like, you cannot hit the
Yes,
skipping of the heart, which is the spiritual chakra and the earth chakra based bridge of our reality. So it was very, very weird for me and icky, because I felt like people were trying to skip over the
yes,
fact that we're trying to leave this reality.
yes.
And the healthiest place you can be to still be embodied is in your heart.
Yeah,
It's not in your crown, not in your third eye, not in your throat chakra. Baby, you got to be in the heart to be fully in your spirit and in your body in this reality. So it's so interesting to me, like the spiritual world in which we're kind of, some folks are like, abandon the body, and you can abandon the body. You absolutely can. And the way you don't do that is by staying in love with life itself and the material of life itself.
right.
So
And
yeah,
loving this home, which is your body,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
We came here in a material world for a reason, and it's not to negate. Uh, well, you can ascend without losing your humanity.
Mhm.
You know, I feel like you brought up something that it triggered something in my mind about like love is the only thing, and I feel like sometimes, well, this is something I've learned on my path, is that love, it is warm and fuzzy sometimes, and it does make you feel safe and nourished and held, and it will make you accountable. It will
Absolutely.
make you face what is your responsibility, but not in a way that initiates suffering, right? Because I think that's the thing. It's like, oh, because in my journey, I was like, well, I don't want to face all this responsibility because responsibility felt like oppression, right? As a woman of color, it felt like I don't really want to be that like super successful or super rich because then I felt like I'm going to be even more oppressed.
Mm.
So what I realized is that, oh, it's actually not the material thing. It's actually my relationship to love. My
Mm.
relationship to love felt um, distorted because of society, just everything what I thought it was. But going back inward into my heart, into my spirit, I remembered, okay, this journey, this path of love is always going to feel sacred and feel like home. And it's going to be a powerful catalyst for change. And that is not always going to be comfortable. Sometimes it's going to be painful, but the pain is not to punish you, but to shake things up, to release what is no longer serving you. And you can love yourself through that. And I think that's the gap that I will always try to avoid um, early on, like in my 20s and 30s. It's like I was already feeling oppressed. So I didn't want to experience any more pain. So I would want to bypass that part. Anything that felt uncomfortable, I would push my way. I would force my way, control my way. But now I realize, oh no, it's actually the middle way that we talked about on our session. It's like developing that middle way because that middle way is the heart. That's how you go from A to Z. It's like you actually have to not just move through the middle part, but actually enjoy it, even the stuff that's uncomfortable. And you can make a choice to love yourself through it, especially the parts that are the most painful. And I learned from this mentor one time, she said, the level of the level of pain you're able to hold, the capacity of that, it also parallels your capacity to hold that level of joy.
Mm.
So it's like, okay, because I can hold a lot of pain, that must mean I can hold a lot of joy, right? So there's like, there's always a duality, right? So I love this conversation so much. It's so my soul.
Yeah, I can talk about love all day. But I wanted to add on with what you shared about like the duality and the pain. And I definitely have like my fair share of like PTSD, from traumatic experiences in my childhood. I experienced like sexual assault when I was a child. I experienced the trauma of like Hurricane Katrina when I was 16. I've experienced like, you name it, I've been through it, type of stuff. And I definitely, because of all of the internal trauma I was afraid to confront, I was afraid to meditate. I was afraid to close my eyes. I was afraid of what demons or horrible nightmares I would start having if I were to look at the stuff I was avoiding. And the only way I was able to feel safe and doing my own self-healing work around my trauma was by viewing darkness as love,
Yeah.
you know, as
Yeah.
like I really, and when I say darkness, I'm talking about like pitch black, you know, I'm talking about silence. I'm talking about the unknown as love. Um, because there was so much fear around change. There was so much fear around what may happen, what has already happened, you know, coming back up to the surface. And it is very, I feel like, violent and unnatural, a lot of the ways that we have to play human, in going about having our careers and our general survival, working a 9 to 5. And if I already have to contort myself so much in regards to this like capitalistic, you know, white supremacist patriarchal society as a Black woman, to just survive, um, my breath has to be love. Like
Yes.
I have to feel that I am choosing that, and I'm not choosing what I'm being force fed in this very sick and unhealthy society. So
Yes. Yes. Which is revolutionary, and which is what the world really needs,
yeah.
right? And I feel like that's why um I feel like why God has called me to help support, introverts and empaths and highly sensitive is because we have the natural ability to go inward because we have such deep, rich inner worlds, and it does take courage, but I just feel like the world needs that type of leadership. You don't necessarily have to be the loudest, but you are convicted in your truth and the universal truth of what it means to be human, what it means to love, what it means to expand and to grow together, And so I just feel like maybe that's part of why I feel like we were drawn together and why I also felt moved to invite you to be a guest because I really want people to witness somebody who embodies that type of leadership that feels safe, that feels whole, that feels human, but also feels self-aware, conscious, right? You when you speak, you you speak from a very high self-aware level, but you're also very grounded. And I feel like that's where I do feel like more and more leaders, especially who speak about spirituality, that that duality needs to always be together. You can't one from the other because we are human, but we are always connected to our spirit, which is supernatural. But we are here to actually bridge the gap for ourselves and then for others, right? In whatever expression that, God wants you to express. But I just feel like that union cannot be broken, in order to really connect as human beings who have such like divine light to share, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, love is just the pulse, you know, it just, if we were to take the idea of love itself out of this world, I don't think I would still be alive. Like I wouldn't. It's so beyond our conceptual reality that has to be real. It's just so infinite in nature as a moving force, as a driving force, finding the ordinary and extraordinary material of life itself, like nourishing and worth being fully present for. That I think there's just no denying it. And I feel that, you know, when I see people that are struggling, whether it's like with anxiety or depression or suicidal ideation, a lot of it is like a disconnect from community, first and foremost. The most important is seeing ourselves in community and being loved in community, cared for in community, because we have to see our own humanness. We can never feel special with our stuff. I don't feel special with my trauma. And when we feel like this sort of egoic me, as well as the very real biology of this stuff, we need to be held compassionately and gracefully.
I'm glad that you brought that up in relation, like love in relation to yourself and in relation to others. So I'd like to ask, like, how do you define, like, or maybe you can share some tips also, like how you are able to maintain your sense of self-love on your day-to-day, and also in relation to community, in relation to others, without um, losing yourself. And because I find, why I'm asking this question is because I find, as someone who's sensitive, highly sensitive, um, because what I struggle with in the past is because I care so deeply, it's hard to find that where does that boundary without feeling guilty, right? So how do you like honor that boundary for yourself while also honoring that boundary for others, while operating at a high capacity to share love, right? So yeah, any tips, or because I'm sure that people are watching this want to be able to apply this. Like, how do I resonate with what you're saying, but how do I go from where I am now to like applying it in my own life?
Absolutely. So I hear like three questions there.
Or
But
how for you?
I feel like for the everyday, definitely just valuing love, like valuing in the umbrella word of love, compassion, grace, kindness, presence, softness, ease. I feel like there's so many words that I really allow within that umbrella term. And through that lens, just being mindful of how you're treating yourself and how that will impact how you're treating others, like as the very foundation of your life. I always tell people that whatever you're working through, whatever you're processing, allow the bed of it to be love, the foundation of it to be a graceful, compassionate fall into more love, into more understanding and acceptance to whatever life is throwing your way. I am definitely not someone that shies away from chaos and discomfort. I've been called the queen of chaos before because I'm so like level-headed and calm in working through a fire, of just accepting the material of whatever is impermanently in front of you. And that is also something that's just a universal truth that I live by, is impermanence. And through impermanence, not having any level of aversion or craving of only certain energetic states of, this is the material. Like, I'm not going to shy away from a day that's hard, a day that's easy. Whatever is coming up, I trust that I'm falling into more love and into more evolution of where I need to be. So yeah, it's really giving myself that grace that allows me to feel safe with whatever's coming up that's uncomfortable. And I share this quote like probably all the time because it was such a big guiding force for me. It was from the Tao Te Ching, and the quote itself is, "She does not cling to her own comfort, thus problems are no problem for her." So I'm always mindful in my evolution, not clinging to the past, not creating anchors in the present that it's preventing me from evolving, because I know that my soul's evolution is why I'm here. It's the only reason I'm alive, is because my soul is still evolving or is still learning. I think we think of evolving as like expansive, but I think of evolving as like, I'm still learning. So the valuing of it is very important. And also holding yourself accountable to when your actions were not aligned with love. I live a very restorative justice based sort of reality. I studied restorative justice in undergrad as well. And what that means is that I'm okay acknowledging when I've harmed another person. And I only want people in my life that are okay acknowledging when they've harmed me, and allowing ourselves to continue evolving that way. So holding yourself accountable, and choosing it and valuing it. I forget the other things I wanted to share. Can you share like any other questions you have about it?
Oh, yeah, it was really because you embody love like so much. I just wanted to know like
Yeah.
how you really define that sort of self-love for yourself, you
Mm.
know. Um, just so people can get a sense of like how you do it, and then from a practical standpoint, which you already started answering, is like how people can apply it in their own lives. So
Yeah. I think everyone's definition of love is subjective. There is no one like Webster's dictionary understanding of it. But I view it as freedom. I view it as like a liberatory practice. Like I'm constantly choosing liberation. And in choosing that, how am I treating my mind? How am I treating my body? How am I treating my spirit? How am I allowing freedom that is judgment free and shame free? Love is very high, on the scale. I think of like Dr. David Hawkins' scale in regards to the map of consciousness. It is very close to enlightenment, and it allows us to experience the highest level of internal freedom that's possible. And I think on a very practical level, a way to choose it more is in how we're making sense of situations. Are we making sense of situations in our life that are causing us to ruminate on the past, that are causing us to dwell in shame, that are causing us to dwell in anger, frustration, resentment, bitterness? Um, Call me delusional. But I really don't like making sense of my daily experiences in a way that's going to cause me suffering. And if someone, though, for example, were to say, hey, you caused harm to me, I'm ready to then reflect on the past. But I'm just going to keep moving by choosing, the way of least resistance through peace as much as I can. Yeah.
glad that you brought up the word freedom, because that's like a deep like value of mine too. And what's interesting is, when I thought of freedom initially, I was like, oh yes, free to do whatever, free to do, just to not worry, have any limitations. But when I realized that when I was doing more and more deep inner work, I realized, oh, wait a minute, this is kind of scary, because I recognized that what made me feel safe was heaviness,
Mm.
feeling oppressed, felt. It actually made me feel grounded in my body. So I was like, oh, wait a minute. So that in itself was painful to recognize, like, in order to be free, because I could hear God say, in order to be free, you're going to have to let go of this heavy, burdened state that you're used to, that was passed down to you, and to let that go and to trust that ease and lightness. Because I shared with you in our call, my word of the year for this year's light. So light as in to feel lighter, but also to be embody this divine light. And exploring that on a deeper level, it was like, oh, wait a minute, you mean I can't cling onto these things to be free? No. I'm like, uh-oh. So it was just like questioning, what is freedom? Freedom is not just, oh, I get to do this whenever I want. It's like free in my own thoughts. Like when you said free of shame, free of judgment. Oh, that means I have to be gentle with myself when that comes up. So what I've been doing is whenever these patterns come up, I ask myself, how can I love myself through this?
Mm.
Even if I don't want to. How? I wonder what it's like. Just inviting the conversation, even though my overachieving self is like, I want to get it right. I want to be perfect. It's like, no, that in itself is limitation. Freedom in itself means you have the ability to be whatever at any moment, right? And so, oh, I'm getting chills. So it's like allowing yourself to step into that dimension of like this eternal, infinite version of you, which is not something that you're modeled when you're little, let alone when you're an adult. So it's like, again, that's why I said earlier that it's revolutionary to operate this way, because it does take a lot of self-awareness, a lot of courage, but it does keep you grounded in your physical body, but grounded in the higher realm of like life. And so you do feel safer to operate in the world because you're not limited by a box of the past that you've created just to survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's it's the creative playground, it's creation's playground. It's the infinite potential of where this love can take us and what can happen from it. All the potentialities exist when you're choosing love. And it's beautiful. I really do think of it in regards to a practical sense. I think of it like water, like a river, and now how we're supposed to stay on the river in choosing love, and by not dropping these anchors, in regards to treading lightly with our own mind, treading lightly with other people, giving people that infinite grace. That's also a word for love for me. It is the flow of, yeah, this happened and this happened, and there's nuances, and there's all of the different colors of the day. And I'm okay with every color. I had colors of my day-to-day that were stressful and anxiety inducing. And I had colors today that I was like in imposter syndrome. And at no point was I like, this is it. This is who I am. I'm an anxious imposter. I think in choosing that level of deep internal freedom, we're giving ourselves the space to breathe easy, and to play in reality, in a way that's liberating, not only for ourselves, but there's a ripple effect in community. I'm an educator full time. Every day I'm with 50 teenagers. I'm constantly around people. I also like co-facilitate a plant medicine community just for people of color that has over 100 people in it on our membership deck. So I'm constantly around people. I constantly exist in community. And I wanted to come back to community because I really struggled with intimacy on like a soul level. And I really appreciated you bringing that up on like what that looks like for an introvert. Because for me, I think the word for me is I'm a omnivert. Like I can be super extroverted sometimes, and then I could be extremely comfortable by myself. Yeah. So I'm an omnivert. Like I could be introverted, extroverted, and I can do like 10 days by myself on a beach or meditating completely alone. And I feel like that's like a really provocative place to be in, because I see the pendulum swing of like my own identity and my own sort of like performance of my egoic 3D self, of like, okay, this is what this moment is asking of me, or this is what I most need. So I'm sharing that because I have really, really struggled in community in regards to feeling safe, in regards to allowing my many expressions to pop out, because I have such a deep fear of judgment and I don't want to touch it. I don't want to create spaces in which people have to deal with it. I want people to feel so fucking free when they're around me, to just be their full selves. And it is something that I feel like really inspires me as a teacher and as a community leader, is how do we allow our full humanity How do we allow our full expression of self that involves zero contorting, zero code switching, all of the messiness, all of the nuances, for us to play with. So that looks like being triggered a lot. I'm around such rich diversity. I work in like a very multicultural school. It's won like diversity awards. My community is very diverse in regards to the different POC communities we have under it. So yeah, it's just a wealth of space to play in when we allow people to not have to deal with the noise of this reality in a container of love. So it makes me very happy. It's my life's work, honestly. Like I actually am starting a nonprofit. This is the first time I'm actually sharing this is on this podcast. The name of the nonprofit, that's all I'll share is the name of it is Creation's Playground. And I want people, teenagers, adults, to be able to play within a field in nature freely. So, yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Congratulations. I feel honored that you shared that with me and our audience. The fact that you brought up intimacy, because I've been reflecting on that, because I've been going to be sharing more on that next week. Like, as a sensitive soul, as an introvert, and a friend of mine also said, like, I don't think you're an introvert, Jennifer, because you like, you're good with people. I'm like, well, I'm good with people like one on one in small groups, but because I think you're an ambivert. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. But it's just what I've come to realize is that when I'm alone, that's my comfort zone. Like, I actually am not afraid to be alone, but in relation to others, that's where I feel like because of the boundaries. It's like, oh, because I tried to outsource so much of my self-worth externally, I didn't know how much I could value my own sense of self-worth, how I don't want to upset that people pleasing, that good girl pattern would come up. So it's like it's taken time for me to find that sense of balance and integrity within myself, to own my personal power, and to be okay with however anyone responds to me. That's like it takes time to like get to that place, but the source of it I found is that creating a sense of safety in your own intimacy within yourself in relation to life, with God, whatever you believe in, that is the foundation for you to have a healthy relationship with others. That's why I felt like this conversation about love was so important to have, because with social media and just if you're just looking at what you're fed online or on TV, movies on a surface level, it just feels like, yeah, you're supposed to look like this and you're supposed to do this in order to be lovable, right? But I feel like this conversation is so important to dig deeper on like what is love in relation to your humanity and your spirit and living on this earth and leaving a legacy with your life, whatever that looks like for you, and to feel in integrity with that. Like really question that like for yourself, and no one has to validate that but you. And I just really appreciate us having this in-depth conversation about what love is, because I just feel like it's so needed as the guiding force, the guiding principle of your own life. And you're the only one that can honor that and claim that and walk it for you. So
Yeah. And, I guess the last thing I'll share is like, this is like a really funny little story. I remember on like OkCupid, they used to have this thing about like, what is your guiding force? Like, is it love? Is it wealth? Is it fame? I was like, what is this? And I think it's so interesting because on a soul level, your soul doesn't care what you do. Like, it truly doesn't in regards to like material, like, what do you do to make money? Your soul does not care about. Your soul cares about your evolution. And you can't really evolve too much just chasing money, just chasing fame. Like you're not going to get too far with that. So I feel like on a soul level, it's a good bet in regards to growth on this.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because surface adrenaline hits can only go so far, but what is going to really sustain you? I mean, and what's funny is I find that when you really cultivate that sense of love for yourself, you're able to get the material, worldly accolades and stuff because you're operating from a place of like true liberation because you don't need it in that sort of ego clingy way. It's more like I'm aware and I operate from a sense of freedom, my own freedom, right?
Yeah. And from that sense of freedom is the creative potential of like infinite abundance, is the monetary, by giving yourself that sort of love-based motivation, the love-based, reality, things become a lot easier in regards to doing anything.
People gravitate towards you because they can feel that energy that feels expansive, that feels non-judgmental, that feels limitless, right? Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy that we had this conversation. Where can people find you? And if you could share how people can work with you and talk about like your amazing retreat coming up in Bali.
Yeah, I have this beautiful retreat this summer. It's called Receive Bali. We're heading to Bali for 8 days. It's just for women of color. I'm super excited about it. So that's gonna be like one of my big, big, big offerings this year. I'm still working with clients. I'm here and there, when I can on the weekends, like virtual sessions or in person in Brooklyn. And I'm also available, which I'm stepping more into, is regards to like maybe corporate offerings. I'm trying to do more like panels and just like mindfulness and breathwork offerings, just to continue being like more accessible to the general public. Financially, I want to be able to bring back my monthly virtual offerings often. So yeah, and I'm available at Liana Naima on Instagram and Twitter, and that's my website as well, is liananaima.com.
Wonderful. Well, I just adore you, and your soul is so full and profound. And I'm so grateful that our community just got a chance to connect with you and really drop into your heart. And the thing that really stuck out to me today is when you said, whatever is happening in your life, it's like it's an opportunity for you to fall more and more deeper in love. And I just feel like that, to me, that's like my takeaways. Like, no, it's true. No matter what happens, you're not being punished. It is if you choose it, which is your free will. If you choose it, it is an opportunity to fall more and more deeper in love, not only for yourself but of life, and to trust that a force greater is loving you and supporting you.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I could talk about this for like 5 more hours. 5 hours. It hasn't even been 5 hours, but I feel like I could talk about it for 5 hours.
I enjoyed it so much. Maybe we'll do another one.
I would love to. I'd love to.
Well, congratulations on all your success, and I wish you a lot of success with your retreat and everything else that you're creating in the world. It's much, much needed.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.